All right. Happy Wednesday. Hopefully you guys are having a good week. Appreciate you taking time out of your Wednesday night to come hang out with me over here on the live, running up on Facebook, on YouTube, on TikTok, and on X over there. Hopefully X is working. I think X has been working here recently. So lots of things to get into tonight. Where do we want to start? Let's start with the private credit. So you've got many large private credit funds starting to halt withdrawals or limit withdrawals. And it's not just one. You've got, I think it's Clear Falls, you've got Morgan Stanley, you've got JP Morgan, you got BlackRock, Blackstone, and then there's been a few others as well. So, like, why does this matter? Well, what is private credit? Private credit acts as the shadow banking system, is really what it is at this point. They are the liquidity providers that are out there. You're able to generate, higher interest than a bank would normally lend. The risk that a bank would normally underwrite is much lower than what private credit will lend to, but they're willing to take on the additional risk because people are willing to pay higher interest rates. So they deploy that into private equity. They provide it into real estate transactions. A lot of the time, it's bigger deals. And when you start to see them halt withdrawals, that means investors are getting scared. Investors are seeing defaults on the horizon. They're seeing liquidity drying up, and these are illiquid investments, right? Like that, they will allow you some withdrawals, but they're going to halt. They can gate it, and that's what's happening because they don't want people running for the door. And this is a canary in the coal mine for me. I actually posted about this on Twitter the other day. This is very similar to the situation that we started to see just a few weeks before the GFC happened in 2008. You started to see liquidity providers really clamp down and start tightening things. And, they would talk about their liquidity position. There was a lot of that posturing on CNBC and other large media networks. And, they were saying that they were fine, when in reality, Lehman Brothers and many others were about to go under. And they knew that the loans that they had put out on the ninja loans and all the other not so great stuff that they had done with the credit default swaps was going to go bad, the collateralized debt obligations. So, and for those who don't know what that is, I'll talk about that a little bit. So in 2008, the banks were lending out to pretty much anybody that had a pulse. You could get a loan on a home. Before that, 2004, 2003, 2000, all the way up to about 2006. And even into 2007 and early 8, they were still doing these loans. And what the banks would do is they would package them up. So they would take, I don't know how many loans, it depended on the bank, and they would roll it up into one product, basically. And they would say, they would grade it at like grade A credit. This is awesome. These loans are all going to be fully repaid. We checked all these people. They have a pulse. They're going to be able to pay their loans. Or if they're not, then the real estate's can be worth enough that we're going to be able to claim it. It's not a big deal. Obviously, that didn't end up working out and being the case. And so this was a new financial product for them, and they started packaging that up, and they made a lot of money selling those off because residual payments are great for annuities. They're great for pension funds. They're great for a lot of things that need to dole out capital over an extended period of time to pay people on a regular cadence. So they did those. And obviously, because they didn't underwrite the risk on the loans appropriately, and they also graded them much higher than what they were actually worth, we ended up seeing a really bad outcome in 2008 because of that, which almost collapsed the global financial system back then. But luckily, BlackRock stepped in and, over the past 20, 25 years, they repackaged all of that debt, and they took a little bit of bad debt, sprinkled it in with the good debt, and over time, they've cycled through that. But now we're coming to a much larger situation where they've continued to print money, and people over leverage themselves. They get into a position where they can't afford things, and things start to go bad, especially when we start to see economic conditions tighten, which is what we're seeing with higher interest rates right now. It's more difficult for people to sell a home. People can't refinance a home. People that are looking for bridge loans or liquidity or credit aren't able to get it. And if they are able to get it, the interest rate that they're paying for it is so high that they can't service the debt. And that's why, President Trump has asked for the Fed to lower interest rates aggressively. We just haven't seen that happen because they can't. Because if they do, thank you, my wonderful wife.
No fun.
Oh, no fun cup. No bluey cup tonight. Even though on another note, Ripple got their Australian license this morning. So anyway, all that being said, I think we're at a point very similar to where we were in 2008. We're on the precipice of a liquidity crisis across the globe. So back to the Fed. The Fed would like to lower interest rates. I know that they would because it would help our economy here. But if they lower interest rates too aggressively in order to be able to actually meet what they need to, it's going to cause the reverse carry trade to unwind. So that's why they've held. Bank of Japan would like to raise interest rates, but they know that that's going to cause the reverse carry trade to unwind. So they've held. And that's going to suck liquidity out of markets. It's going to collapse prices. It's going to reprice everything when it happens, because it's tens of trillions of dollars that are going to get sucked out of markets. So that's why you've seen this dynamic play out, and really they're backed into a corner now. Really don't have an option. We're on the precipice of a deflationary collapse, which is a much worse type of collapse than a blow off top. Like you've seen other countries hyperinflate their currency and their stock market goes through the roof and assets appreciate, and then everybody's broke because the money's not worth anything. A deflationary collapse basically makes it where there's not a whole lot of jobs because there's not enough demand for anything. Very similar to the Great Depression. And if you look through history, the cycles have repeated themselves. Every fourth turning or so, we get a depression. It normally comes with a war of some kind that always coincides with it. And then there'll be a change in monetary regime. The last one of these was World War I. And we've had, actually, I guess it was World War II. Yeah, would have been World War II. And we saw Bretton Woods in 1944. We've had a couple different changes in the monetary system while the dollar's been the dominant currency. But now we're at the precipice of the dollar no longer being the global reserve currency. And that's why all of these things are showing up again. So if you see the cycles, you understand what's going on, you can position yourself correctly. A lot of people have run to gold. They made a good call on that early on. Precious metals have done extremely well. For those that saw it coming, there's been a couple people like Mike Maloney and Peter Schiff that saw this coming decades ago. They didn't think they could kick the can this far, but they have. Both of them were around in .com boom and thought that was going to be the end of it. And obviously it's persisted significantly longer than they anticipated. So all that being said, I hope you guys are ready. With these things taking place right now, we're close. It's going to be bad when it happens, but I do think that they're going to roll XRP, instant settlement. The velocity of money is going to pick up substantially, and that'll kickstart the economy, and it'll pull us out of this potential deflationary collapse that we were going to have otherwise. So excited for that. The other things I was going to mention, again, we're still watching oil over there in Japan, priced in yen. We're back up over 14,500 yen per barrel, moving aggressively to the upside this evening. We have seen that they're going to come out and release their oil reserves early next week, but I don't know that the market cares, and that's the problem. They can come out and say that they're going to release oil, but until they actually put it onto the market, it might be too little too late. We'll have to see what the Bank of Japan does today there in Japan. It is Thursday in Japan right now. So we have 2 more days this week. It's also Friday the 13th this week. So maybe something spooky will happen on Friday. I don't say that lightheartedly. I really hope that we don't end up in a really bad situation. But I do think that there is going to be pandemonium in the market when all of this does play out. Ripple getting their monetary license over there in Southeast Asia and Australia today to be able to transact full-scale business there. I thought that they already had a lot of the money transmitter licenses, and maybe it was just the MTLs that they have. But now they have full regulatory authority to be able to participate and process payments at scale as a bank in that region. So big deal. I'm not aware of any other jurisdictions in the U.S. or globally, really, not just the U.S., that they are waiting on to be able to transact business. The only other one that I can think of might be India, that they are lacking a full money transmitter license and payment provider or banking infrastructure. Now, they have partners in that jurisdiction that could facilitate or fill those gaps, but that's the only one that's still lingering in my mind for the license that they need. And they could go, they could use XRP now to transact business globally. They have Hidden Road, they have G Treasury, they have Palisade, they have Rail, all the acquisitions that they made last year. They've just released a tender offer. So our mastermind community knew about that on Monday when that came out. It's coming out in the news now. They are buying back $750 million worth of their shares at $300 per share. At $250 per share, they were at a $50 billion valuation. So, this would be a little bit higher than that. I don't know if it's a $60 billion valuation, something like that. Pretty big deal. They're going to buy back up to 5% of their shares. And they've done tender offers twice a year for the past couple years. So this is nothing new for them. They do sell XRP onto the market to be able to finance the buyback of their own shares, but they believe that their own shares in XRP are going to be worth substantially more later on. I heard you. Sometimes you forget about things and your wife reminds you. And sometimes she forgets about things and I get to remind her. So it's just part of the status quo. All that being said, I think Ripple's in a really strong position to be able to execute and continue with their vision. And obviously XRP is at the center of that. Still haven't heard anything about Evernorth finalizing their SPAC, but that should be at some point this month here in March. I believe their target was sometime in Q1. So I would expect to see Evernorth finalize their SPAC in the coming weeks here in the next, call it 20 days left in March. So that'll be a big deal. Not saying to buy Evernorth, to buy their stock now. I don't know what it's going to do. I think that they're going to be successful. I think that Ashish and David and Michael Arrington all know what they're doing and likely will be very successful with the launch of that. Excited to see it. Excited to watch them seed DeFi protocols on the XRPL and continue to cultivate interest in the ecosystem and grow that business and shareholder value. Again, can't tell you to invest in it or not. If you have some stuff over there on the stock market, you might look at it, do your own analysis and make those decisions. And that's a good time for my disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. None of this is financial advice. It's only for entertainment and educational purposes. You should always consult with a financial advisor, a CPA, or an attorney before making any financial, tax, or legal decisions. All the opinions expressed here are my own. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or Digital Wealth Partners, our SEC registered RIA. But if you need those professionals to have those conversations with, you can always reach out to us. We do have them either work for us or we have close partnerships with people all over the globe to be able to help you, even if you're international in Australia, if you're in Canada, if you're in the EU, if you're in the UK, if you're in the Middle East, or domestic here in the US. Still working on South America. Don't have that one down yet. Still working on Africa. Don't really have that one down yet. But more of the developed countries, we have good professionals that we can refer you out to if you live in those jurisdictions. I have a couple super chats that I've got to go over, but I'm going to talk about two of the things first. One, we have a wealth dinner on the 23rd of this month. If you guys want to sign up for that, it is $5,000. I know it's pricey. A lot of people jump my butt about that. So I'm going to tell you why it's $5,000. Okay. When I first started doing the consults years ago, I did them all for free. I did somewhere between 60 and 100 consults completely free for people on Twitter. I just said, hey, if you want to talk about your estate plan, whatever else, call me. And that worked great. I love doing those. I like talking to people, getting to know them, helping them solve their problems, or connecting them with the right people to be able to do that. And then I started charging. I thought, okay, well, there's enough demand for this. People want it for free. And so, I started charging like 150 bucks. And this was in 23, and my calendar just stayed booked all the time. And it was hard for me to scale the business and do the other stuff I needed to do. So I brought on other people, and they started taking the calls at that price. And they're just as good as me. It's not like I'm better than anybody else that works for our company. They all understand all the same stuff. And so I raised my price a little bit to like 500 bucks, for the consult, and people still booked my calendar up. And I'm like, I can't believe people want to spend 500 bucks to come ask me all these questions, but like, happy to do it as long as I feel like I'm providing people that much value. I always want people to feel like they got more value than we're charging. Right. So, my calendar still stayed pretty full with consults there. So I raised my price again to 1,000, and I was like, nobody's going to pay 1,000. And people continued to pay 1,000 to continue to meet with me. And so, there was a couple more steps there, and I eventually got to $5,000 for 30-minute consults, and people were still paying it. And I'm like, I have a hard time justifying this in my mind. There's a few people, that reach out, and I can provide them more than $5,000 worth of value in a call for sure. There's problems that I can solve and things that we can move. If you've got millions of dollars that you're talking about, that's definitely going to save you $5,000. But when I have people that are, not quite in that position, and they pay $5,000 for 30 minutes or an hour of my time, I feel bad about that. So the reason we did the dinners, and people can still pay the $5,000 for the 30 minutes if they want to, but the reason we do the dinners is you get to meet a bunch of other cool people that can afford to come to that dinner and be in the room and learn all the things that they're going to learn. And we're a little more candid at those than I am on here. So I try to provide people a lot of value, answer their specific questions, get in the weeds, help them through things. And, you get a hotel room, you get a nice dinner, and you get to meet other cool people that have a lot of XRP and probably aligned interest with you. Right. So that's why we charge that. If that sounds like something you would be interested in, if you want to come, check it out, it's normally pretty exclusive. We normally have between 3 and, 10 couples that show up to the dinners. So if that sounds like something you would enjoy, you want something exclusive, more private, intimate, ask more questions, get direct answers on stuff, we would love to see you there on the 23rd. If that's a little pricey, but you still want a lot of really good information, we have another event called Magnify Your Wealth. Laughlin, who is our paralegal group, they're putting that on May 1st through the 3rd. You can go to magnifyyourwealth.com, and you can use the code DAG, like, the initials, or Digital Ascension Group, all capitalized, and they get you $100 off the tickets there. I'm not sure what the total cost. I think they're going to raise it here fairly soon. But if that, you want to learn about estate planning, you want to learn about taxes, you want to learn about insurance, you want to learn about crypto and how to manage that, I'll be there speaking. We'll have many other great speakers there at that event. We would love to see you there. You can go to magnifyyourwealth.com and register. And again, use the code DAG for $100 off May 1st through the 3rd. All right. We'll get into the super chats here. The ones that I missed from last week. And then we'll get into the real super chats from tonight, which I haven't even looked at yet because I've been rambling on. Again, I always forget to say this. If you wouldn't mind, please click the like, subscribe, and share buttons on social media. They do help the algorithm. And yeah, only if you're finding value. If you're not finding value, don't click it. This one says, hello, I've been trying to get in touch with everyone who can get my super chat from the 13th of November. This person's been trying to get a hold of us for a long time, but we got it. So sorry that it took this long. Oh, it's very detailed. This is very good. Okay. This is an actual scenario. They say, my question is, I'm in my early 50s, married, live in Florida, no kids. Not financial advice, but which products that you offer would you recommend after price appreciation, with 5% being able to work with you now, looking to retire, have some real fun, be able to help kids, veterans. He is a vet himself, which thank you for your service, whoever this is. and animals. So they have philanthropic interest, which is awesome. They say whatever I don't go through passes on to my nieces and nephews, but I want to make sure they keep giving to certain charities, and make sure future generations do the same. Thanks. This comes after rereading question. I'd also want to keep it quiet, and the 5% was for a certain amount of XRP. Okay. Was for the 50K minimum. Okay. All right. So lots of stuff here. So you're not married, you don't have kids. So I actually have three full videos that I put out a long time ago about this that ran through like multiple scenarios, depending on what age you were, time horizon, kids, no kids, kids with disabilities, philanthropic interest, no philanthropic interest. And I worked through, what I've seen people do in those situations. I didn't give specific names of clients, but they were actual situations that we've worked through. So this gentleman, no kids, I'm assuming not married. So they are married. So your spouse obviously will benefit from this too. Want to travel and do fun stuff and give back. Okay. So the products for somebody that has a decent amount of XRP that they want to earn 5% on and do good things with. You'd probably structure that in a couple different avenues. So you mentioned wanting to help your niece and nephews. You also want a philanthropic component to that, and you want to be able to enjoy things over your lifetime. So we kind of look at it through three lenses. You have legacy, you have legacy, and then you have, legacy, you have philanthropic interest, and then you have lifestyle. Okay. And you're kind of a blend of all three because you don't have kids, but your legacy is your nieces and nephews. So you're probably going to want some type of irrevocable trust, maybe a spendthrift trust put in place that has certain philanthropic donation provisions in there that they have to do on a regular basis. You could also set up a charitable remainder trust during your lifetime, separate of the irrevocable trust or the spendthrift trust that you set up for your nieces and nephews. That would be able to pay you and your spouse something over your lifetime while the assets were invested inside of that charitable remainder trust and continue to grow. You also get the donation write-off when you invest that in kind or donate it in kind to the charitable remainder trust. And the interest that's accrued, you can pay yourself a portion of that, and then a large portion of that will flow to the charities of your choice during your lifetime. And then after you pass away, all the assets that are left there in the charitable remainder trust would then go in proportion to whatever charities you're going to leave that to. So that would be something I would look at there. And then, like I said, for the nieces and nephews, you're probably going to look at something. I don't know how old they are. If you're in your 50s, I'm going to say that your siblings are similar. They probably had their kids in their 20s and 30s. So your nieces and nephews are probably in their 20s or 30s. Hopefully they already have some philanthropic interest and they want to help other people. But to cultivate that, you could definitely put provisions in the trust. You could also set up a foundation that was separate of the charitable remainder trust and the other charities that you wanted to donate to. That could have an endowment, or you could donate, crypto to that also over your lifetime. And then they could sit on the board of the charity and dole, whatever donations they were going to have out to whatever, missions were aligned with the philanthropic means for that organization. You would want to work with somebody like Dan Plaskett. He's our chief architect for Digital Ascension Group and the estate planning side. So if you want to schedule a time with him, again, I'm not sure what this gentleman's name was because he didn't give it to me. But if you're watching, you just reach out to us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and you can talk to Dan, and he can work you through, all those options that I just mentioned, and he's probably going to have some other ones for you. The other thing that you could do for your nieces and nephews, if you didn't want to do the irrevocable trust, the spendthrift trust, and the reason I say spendthrift is if you wanted to leave things to your nieces and nephews, but they're not old enough and you don't know that they have enough financial education to make good decisions with it, a spendthrift trust makes sure that they can only live off of the distributions that are paid out of the trust, and they can't touch the principal or what you invested. So again, I don't know how savvy they are. You might have one of them that's going to school that's an investment banker that you want to run that thing, right? So there's a lot of variables there, but I would talk to Dan, and then he's going to be able to help you walk through your specific situation. He does values-based planning, so you fill out a full deal of like all the things that I mean, you gave me great context here, so it sounds like you've already worked your way through it. But if you give him that context, he's going to be able to put together a full plan of all the different entities and structures that you'd want to use to be able to accomplish what you give him there in your values. So great question, great context. I like stuff like that where it's detailed, and then I can be pretty thorough with an answer. So hopefully that provided you guys some value if you also have, similar interest or might be in a similar situation. You probably want, well, you could look at a revocable trust for you and your spouse also. I'm sure you own a home. You probably have, other assets aside from crypto as well. And then the LLC if you set up an LLC, you'd be able to manage that crypto over your lifetime. You could have a pour-in will that would all either flow into the irrevocable trust, the charitable remainder trust, or your living trust that would then be doled out wherever it was going to go. And the other thing I'll say is, as the wealthier you get, the more of these structures you're going to use to be able to accomplish different goals, and you'll portion how much you have out into each one that makes sense and what you think it's going to grow over the long term to be. Centimillionaires and billionaires often have somewhere between 7 and 9 total trusts. So, what people think about just a living trust most of the time when you say a trust, there are 80 plus different types of trusts here in the US, and they're all just contract law. You can actually weave provisions from other trusts into your trust, depending on how you want to structure it. Some are to mitigate taxes, some are to defer taxes, some are to, have philanthropic stuff. They're all tools. There's no end all be all solution on that. And if you're working with the right estate planner, they can make sure that you're using the right tools for your job. All right, next up here. Dr. Dan. He says, any advice or recommendations, growing pains you found when scaling, any lessons / books to read that helped? 24 million Australia. Good XRP. Awesome, dude. Congratulations on the success that you've had so far. So Elon talks about founders. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. I'm assuming you're talking about scaling our business. I like the book Outliers. If you haven't read that book, I would recommend that book. Atomic Habits. I mean, there's lots of books that I've read on business and finance. 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel is really good. He talks about, basically creating a strategic advantage or a moat or a monopoly type business. That's the type of stuff he likes to invest in. Now, obviously, for trust laws, you can't have a monopoly, or at least it can't look like you have a monopoly. But if you can orchestrate that type of business, then, that would be ideal. Another one that you might want to read if you're looking to scale the billions of dollars, and I actually haven't read this book yet. Where is he? If you want to look up Howard Getson, he's a gentleman that I know. I haven't talked to him in a while. I actually need to reach out to him. But he was writing a book a little while back. I don't see it. I just typed in Howard Getson book, and I don't see it up here. But he runs an algorithmic trading hedge fund. When I talked to him, it was like $400 million. He was writing a book on how to become a platform. So as you scale a business, you kind of start with a service, and then you expand and continue to grow there. And the businesses that become billion-dollar businesses end up being a platform for everybody else to participate in. Uber, as an example, lots of people can drive Uber. It provides them revenue for their life and their business. And they can do it on the side. They can do it as a side hustle. They can do it as a full-time job. Amazon allows anybody to manage a store on Amazon. You can list whatever you want there. They're a marketplace. Facebook is also a platform at this point. So what does that look like for your industry, and how can you position yourself there? There's 4 types of leverage. If you don't listen to Alex Hormozy or Patrick Bet-David, both of those guys are great for YouTube to get real tangible business stuff. Both of them have had multi-million-dollar exits. Both of them are young, sharp guys. Patrick Bet-David now has Valuetainment, and he's had pretty much anybody and everybody on his show. He has great content. And so does Alex. Alex talks about, all the lessons that he's learning from business himself, and then also the entrepreneurs he's helping. Him and his wife Layla do fantastic work over there at acquisition.com. But and this came from Naval Ravikant. So this actually didn't come from Alex, but he talks about it too. So there's 4 types of leverage. You have code, you have capital, you have community, and you have content. Okay, so there's 4 C's. Community is like labor, or a community of people. Alex Hormozy. Sorry, I didn't say his last name. Too awake. Good call. So code, any of these things, you do them one time and then you can continue to repeat them, right? So that's what leverage is you do it one time and it continues to work for you beyond that. So if you build code for something, you have upkeep on that, but it's not, as intensive as when you first built it. Obviously, it costs a lot of money to get off the ground. With AI now and Claude, I think that those costs are coming way down. So the leverage there is going to be a little bit less in the not too distant future. I think that that's going to become democratized. Anybody and everybody will be able to develop their own app in real time. SaaS companies are going to be disintermediated very quickly. Then the next one of those is capital. So you put that money to work in some way. You invest it with somebody else. You put it in something that compounds that capital. People are familiar with that. Obviously, if you have other people that work for you, labor, right? You pay other people a salary and they do a fantastic job, and hopefully their output is somewhere between 3 and 10x of whatever you're paying them to your bottom line. And then, lastly is the content piece. I come on here and I make a couple videos a week. I answer these questions. We chop these up into shorts. I have shorts for the next 2 weeks after, the 2 videos that I come on here for the lives for every single week. In your business, when you create an SOP, if you create a video on how you want something done and you can share that across the org, that's leverage, because you only had to shoot the video one time and now everybody learns how to do that. You do a webinar, you can do one-to-many, all of these ways that you can, do more with less is leverage. So that's how I think through things in our business. I think what's the biggest lever that I can pull that's going to have the biggest impact for things. And I will literally sit down and spend a couple hours, every other day, just writing those things out. What are the best opportunities for us out there? And that's done wonders for our ability to scale very quickly while keeping things fairly lean. And we'll continue to do that while we innovate and bring in AI and other things into our business. Those are some good books. Those are some good resources. That's how I think through things. I would say at 24 million, just knowing how businesses are, in order to continue to scale beyond that, you're likely going to have to put hierarchy in place. You're going to have to build systems and SOPs. And that's really kind of the hardest spot for people. Somewhere between 10 and 30 million becomes very difficult because you have demand, you have product market fit, but oftentimes you don't have the systems, you didn't have the people to be able to scale beyond that. And the people that can get you from 0 to 10 million or 10 million to 30 million are probably not the same people that are going to be able to get you from 30 million to $1 billion. It's a different skill set, and there's nothing wrong with that. 8% of people that start with a company make it to IPO. It's very few people that can make it all the way from, they can transition their mindset from being a startup founder to the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. I recently just promoted a CEO within our company and stepped back to chairman. Because, at the scale that we're at, I'm the founder and I have, my ideas about how I want things done, but executing on that and scaling the business, to the point where we're managing billions or hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars. I've never done that before. I would rather bring in people that have seasoned expertise and understanding. And I know that I don't know everything. And I try to be humble about that. Sometimes I have strong opinions about things. You guys probably know that. But I'm also smart enough to know that people that have been there and done that before can help me avoid potholes and issues. So at 24 million, it's probably more about who, not how. And you probably want to start implementing systems and processes and SOPs at scale across the company to increase operational efficiency if you haven't already. So hopefully that's valuable for you. I don't, we had some people hang on there for that. So hopefully post price appreciation, there's a lot of people starting businesses and having a lot of success and making hundreds of millions of dollars a year, either off of their income from their investments or from businesses that they start. Keggers says Japan's banking sector has historically been very open to Ripple's technology. Could a single large-scale development in Asia trigger the kind of liquidity demand that finally changes the global perspective of XRP if the US fails? Not sure if that says fails or falls. I think it says falls. Okay. The answer is yes. I think adoption for XRP is going to start in Japan, and I think it's going to be a liquidity buffer as we see dollars and other currencies rush back to be converted to yen. There's going to be a big bottleneck there for their ability to convert those, and a DEX would go a long way in that situation. And they could use XRP as kind of a holding or a buffer in that transition so that that market didn't actually collapse there in Japan. So SBI, to what you pointed out, many of the banks there in Japan have been very fond of Ripple and R3 and XRP. Yoshitaka Kitao is the principal of SBI, and he's advocated for both of those for a long time. And I think that Japan could absolutely be the catalyst that we need to see full-scale adoption across the rest of the world if they were to be the first mover in adopting XRP. Abstract says, are you on X? I think I'm on X. I'm on my normal streaming platform, so hopefully it's going over to X. I know it's had some issues in the past, so maybe it's having issues again tonight. But we're here on YouTube, we're here on Facebook, and we're here over here on TikTok for sure. Jump into some more super chats for you guys. We got Ellis. He says, brother man, thank you for all that you do. After the no unwind, I'm losing faith. I wouldn't lose faith at all. Just because it's taking a little bit longer doesn't mean it's not going to happen. The private credit deal that I talked about at the beginning of this is a warning sign. Things are flashing in the economy, and for those to be making headlines and not be swept under the rug tells me it's probably further along than most people really understand that it is. We are going to have a global liquidity crisis and a global liquidity call. And I do believe that is going to become from Japan having to raise interest rates. Oil is starting to creep up there in Japan again, even though they're going to release the reserves on Monday, supposedly. But again, it might be too little too late. We could see things unfold here aggressively in the next 24 to 48 hours and maybe over the weekend if they don't get oil out sooner. So, the reserve sounds great, but the market's not believing it currently. We've got Rot Corp. Good to see you. He says, sleep with one eye open, gripping my crypto tight. XRP, XDC, XLM. We're off the Claver land. Metallica. That's great, man. I appreciate the one-liner. Not grabbing your pillow tight, holding on to your crypto tight. We've got Carrington. They say, the Lone Star Legend. What's up, man? Thank you for the kind words in the super chat. They say, just appreciative of your teachings and wisdom. I started on this path not knowing where or how, but I found your videos and it has been a light in the dark world. Say hi to Gunny for me. My mom's. Hey, Gunny. It's good to see you. Appreciate you watching and the support. And again, appreciate you guys taking time out to watch the lives. I never would have thought people would care what I have to say this much. I really appreciate everybody that takes the time to watch these while they're live and later on. It means the world to me, and I enjoy doing it. I get a lot of fulfillment from it, and I will keep doing it as long as you guys will have me. So thank you. Mr. Shook, I'm excited to see you on the 31st and play a little golf, my man. He says, can you share details about the Wednesday night get together between Las Vegas for Bitcoin and XRP Vegas. Angelina and I are flying in on Wednesday. Thank you for everything. I'm pumped to see you in Austin. Beyond Broke Mastermind, Carbon 3 and beyond. Awesome, dude. Glad to have you as part of the community. If you guys want to be part of the group, we are going to have an exclusive event there in Vegas on Wednesday night between Bitcoin Vegas and XRP Vegas. I won't say where. You have to be in the mastermind to figure that out. If you want to join the mastermind, we have more in real life events than any other community in crypto, maybe besides like Crypto Mondays. Shout out to Lou over there. I got to see him not that long ago. But anyway, yeah, so that's what it'll be. We'll get you more details. I'm sure we'll be sharing that here soon. We're finalizing costs and everything on that. But it will be the Wednesday in between those two events. And again, if you want to join the mastermind, all you got to do is go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2 there in the mastermind. To get into Carbon 3 like Mr. Shook, you have to be in Carbon 2 for at least 6 months. So pretty exclusive group that he's a part of there, and we're glad to have him. We got KSauce. They say, do you or any of your companies receive any funds from Ripple or entities related to Ripple? We haven't. We know Ripple. They know who we are, but I've never received any compensation from them. We've paid money to build things with R3. I've never received anything from them. We've never hosted an event that Ripple's been at up to this point. So they've never paid to sponsor anything that we've ever put on. I'm just trying to think if there's any other circumstance where they would have given us money for anything. They've always been nice and cordial. We have conversations with them. We've been to Swell multiple times, which we appreciate them having us, with that being invite only. But yeah, I can't think of any exchange or any time in our past where any compensation has been shared between the two. I get on here and I talk about what I believe. And I know that's probably hard for some people, you know, because a lot of the stuff I say seems kind of crazy, right? Like I throw out these numbers. I really believe everything I say on here. We have no sponsors. I say that Decent is a wallet that we, have an affiliate agreement with. We make like $5 if you buy one of their wallets. But that's the only affiliate agreement that we've ever struck with an outside vendor. Everything else has been self-funded by me and my business partner, Max Avery. And so, yeah, we've never received any compensation. We've never raised money. It's been a wild ride. We might at some point in the future. But up to this point, we haven't had any compensation from Ripple or any business agreements or anything struck. So, Rick Johnson, he says, note for upcoming CS Domino theory or your own upcoming note for upcoming SCs Domino theory or your own Domino theory equals your own Domino theory. Super chats. Okay. Sorry, it's late for me, man. And the abbreviations are, if you can type it out, I know that you can't, it like limits the amount that you can type, but the more you can type, the better I'm going to be. Cause I'm spent at the end of the day a lot of the time when I get on here. Rocket Man, he says, dude, what's up? I just want to give you a shout out to my friend Crypto Dave from Iowa. Love being part of the Beyond Broke Mastermind and DWP. Thank you. Thank you to the Tea Lady. Thank you, man. Appreciate the super chat. Appreciate the kind words and the support. Shout out to your buddy Crypto Dave from Iowa. Pretty cool. Hopefully he's watching and he gets a kick out of that. We'd love to see him at one of the events that we have coming up in the near future. We've got Nashville next week, so that's already like completely booked out. We have over 700 people. They're going to be there at the event in Nashville with Canary Capital next week that we're putting on. So if you're part of the mastermind, hopefully you signed up for that. We're excited to see everybody there. Again, we do more in real life events than I think any other community does in crypto, which I think is awesome. Navigator 444 says Carbon 2 for a while now. No question. Just thank you and your team for all that you do. Looking forward to having a bourbon and talking bodybuilding. I'm game, dude. I don't get to talk about bodybuilding as much as I used to. My assistant just got her blood work back the other day, and we went through her blood work and we were talking about hormones. So for people that don't know, take a sip of my tea. People are like, what's more important, weights or diet? The number one thing that would change your physique, your energy, and everything else, not workouts or diet. It is your hormones. Now, your hormones can be dictated by your diet and the nutrients and minerals that you're consuming. So I would get a blood panel done. I would see where you're deficient. If you're deficient in D3, if you're deficient in, if your triglycerides are high, if your hematocrit's high, or there's a lot of things that can be out of whack. Your so if you're on keto for too long, your SHBG will be too high, which is sex hormone binding globulin. And that'll bind up your free test, and then you'll have low T, right? So like blood work is where I would always start. Hopefully you're working with a doctor or somebody that actually understands how to read blood work and what high level athletes blood work looks like. And they're helping you get to that. Most doctors will read blood work and they're like, yeah, you're fine. And you're like, cool, but like, how do I optimize this? And they're like, that's not my job. I just make sure you don't get sick. You need to work with doctors that are in sports performance, and they will help you optimize your hormones, and then the diet and the exercise and the energy and all the stuff that you want to do that you know you need to do in order to be able to accelerate all that stuff will be easier if you're not depressed and sluggish and tired and low libido. So that's my 2 cents. But again, look forward to chatting with you about the bodybuilding in the near future, my man. Appreciate you being part of the community. We got 7U. He says, God bless you, Jake. I think we could see price appreciation in the next 1 to 3 weeks. I'm not going to say anything. He said, I had trouble getting a bank account for my LLC because I have no income or profits for my digital assets yet. Applied to 3 banks, denied. Please advise. If you haven't checked out Old Glory, I would check out Old Glory. And you're going to have to fund the account with something. Like you can't just not put money in it. So start paying some bills out of there. You just pay yourself, make some more capital contributions, from your regular income into that company. It doesn't have to be a bunch of money. It could be a couple $1,000, and then just pay your phone bill out of there, or pay for gas out of there. Just pick one bill that you have every single month and pay it out of the business, and you can write that off. Right. So, that would be my recommendation. Work with your CPA to make sure that the write-off is legit. I should probably say that it's documented and it's done the right way. But I would fund it with a couple grand, and then I would pay some bill out of there that you talk with your CPA that you can write off. Honest Aim, good to see you. He says, hey, Mr. Legacy. Hi to the tea lady. Honest Aim here. Saw Curve XRP enhanced income ETF in the mastermind today. Is that real? Is it good for those that want ETFs? Anything we should know? Thanks for all that you do. You always have great questions, man. Thank you for the support and the fantastic questions. So there will be multiple income ETFs for XRP and other digital assets because people want that. People want a dividend. They want some type of cash flow off of things. And as we see other financial products structured on top of some of these digital assets that are low risk, there'll be more and more of those that show up. You could probably have a blended ETF in the near future. I think BlackRock will launch their XRP ETF, and then you'll see, other blended ETFs come to market. You'll have, like something that has Solana, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, XLM, HBAR, maybe a few others in it. And then the options that they'll have to be able to stake those, they'll earn the income off of that. And then the rest of them, they'll probably put to work in other financial products to be able to generate returns. So I'm excited for that. I think that's good for the ecosystem. For those that have 401ks or IRAs and you're stuck over there in traditional stocks, I think that those are great opportunities to get exposure to the asset class and generate some cash flow for yourself in the meantime. The old nail pounder. Good to see you. They say Carbon One LLC Trust all set. Awesome, dude. Congratulations for being proactive and setting it up early and making sure that you're in position. He says, I feel so blessed. I've stumbled across your YouTube channel over a year ago. I'm a bit shy of 50K in XRP. Be here in a month or two. Please be safe and say hello to the Maisie Tea Queen. I sure will. I'm sure that she appreciates the kind words as much as I do. And again, we look forward to working with you on the special. So I'll mention this again. We talked about it Monday night, but I will say it again here. If you have $100,000 in crypto across all your cryptos, so you don't have to have at least 50,000 XRP, as long as you have some other positions that make up a total amount of 100,000, you can onboard with Digital Wealth Partners. And ideally, you would have set up an LLC to manage that. We see most people set up an LLC somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 in total portfolio value. And that's only if they're anticipating it going up exponentially. Most of the time, you probably wouldn't set up an LLC until you have a couple $100,000 in crypto, but that's, anticipating a slower rate of growth. I think that things are going to move a bit more aggressively than that. So that's why, we tend to see people set things up around 50 to 80,000 in their total portfolio. But that's kind of the first step. Get your revocable trust in place so that you have probate protection, you have the LLC for creditor protection, and then you can get your assets into institutional custody over there with Digital Wealth Partners at Anchorage, where your assets are segregated, bankruptcy remote, insured up to $100 million. You have an advisor that can work with you. You have access to the other financial products that we have now and will be launching in the near future. And you are all set and positioned for price appreciation to be able to borrow against it, earn income off of it, and start living your best life that everybody's looking forward to and planning on, which I love. We got 50 blades of gray. Not shades, blades. He says, no question for you tonight, Jake. Just wanted to say that I appreciate you and the entire community. Love you guys. We're going to change the world. Yeah, we are, dude. Love the 589 super chat. The yen. So one of the charts that I was looking at earlier today that caught my eye on the 589, if you'll go over to the yen versus USD, it's currently sitting at 159, which is right at the upper bound of where they want this. We saw it as high as 159.2 here on the trading day, but this is right at the upper bound. If we see a move in the yen above 159.5, getting close to 160, that's where the Bank of Japan is going to have to raise interest rates. We're starting to see, the yen depreciate against the dollar pretty rapidly here. We've seen, call it 5% in, depreciation against the dollar over the last week or couple weeks here. And again, they're right at the upper bound of this where they've intervened before. So if they're not able to do it through yield curve control, they're going to have to raise interest rates. And I think they're backed into the corner and they have the excuse to do it. So, the other gentleman said he's kind of bummed out that the reverse carry trade hasn't happened yet. Everything's still there. It's going to happen. People just need to be patient. John Jags says, seems the banks meet in Washington. They are openly and aggressively acting against crypto. Big money sways politicians. Do you think that will hurt the Clarity Act? I had a conversation earlier today with a gentleman that lobbies at the highest levels. And his job is to help large corporations get what they want in laws. So to answer your question, yes. The big banks and the big money and people that can lobby and buy politicians and influence things are always going to run the deal. And if you're invested in XRP, you probably understand that pretty well. If you're, super Bitcoin, super Ethereum, or Solana, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, I'm libertarian too. I just understand how the game's played. You can't be in opposition to it. You got to like Trojan horse them, and that's what I think Ripple's doing. And that's why they're behind the wall already. And XRP is going to be instrumental to everything moving forward here, while the other ones are probably going to be disintermediated or lesser used. So the Clarity Act at scale, again, I don't care if it passes at all, to be quite frank with you. I was on Capitol Hill last year advocating for that and the Genius Act with the Digital Chamber during the week when the Genius Act was passed. And at the time, congressmen and women both told me it's probably going to be 2026 for the Clarity Act to pass. I said that all last year. Everybody was mad about it. And now we're here in Q1 of 2026, and it's right on the precipice of passing. I still think XRP will appreciate before the Clarity Act will get passed. But I do think the Clarity Act will get passed. It might be a skinny version of the bill with the DeFi component stripped out of it. But what that means is the rest of the institutions will have clarity around what they can use, what assets are legitimate, and I think it'll be good for the whole space. But XRP doesn't need it. It already has clarity here in the US. It's not a security and is listed on Bitnomio as a commodity trading with USD. So I view it as such. Amish, they say, Jake, my man, how you have been a huge inspiration to me. Thank you, dude. That's really cool to hear. Surreal for me. I don't view myself as anything, special. I put my pants on just like everybody else does and just a regular dude, but it's cool. That's the whole point of this, is hopefully I make an impact for people and help them change their lives for the better. So thank you for the kind words. He says, thank you for all that you do. May God bless you and your family. I'm praying for you. Thank you, man. I need that. I signed up for this. There's a lot that comes along with it that's not so much fun, but it's the only way I can make the difference at scale that I want to actually contribute. So, got to take the good with the bad, and I need all the prayers I can get. So thank you for that. All right. We got a couple more super chats. Rick Johnson, he says, by your own video, you say no big price appreciation possible without the domino theory. Yeah. Low supply shock. Even BlackRock ETF, not enough to get big price appreciation. Can you explain why big price appreciation not possible without the domino theory? Please detail it for dummies. 2030 price appreciation without the domino theory. You're going to get the domino theory, Rick. I don't know how to tell you, I cannot be more certain that you are going to see the domino theory play out. Okay. I wouldn't have come out here for 2 whole years and talked about it the whole time and built the whole thesis. Just so you guys are aware of how I think. It took me 1.5 years to be fully committed to XRP. Okay. And I owned a bunch of other assets and a bunch of other stuff and invested in other things and looked at the whole industry. And I woke up every single day for 1.5 years trying to figure out how I was wrong about XRP. And I asked every question that everybody on here comes and asks, and I worked through everything, and I couldn't poke any holes in it. I did the same thing with the domino theory. Okay. I sat on that for somewhere between 4 and 6 months, putting it together in my mind before I put it out in a video. And I've iterated on it since then, and it's become much more complete over the past 2 years. That is the only situation. I mean, the other thing that could happen that could drive it to a high price, I will concede that there are a few other things. One of those things would still be a liquidity crisis. It would just be in crypto. So if Tether, unprompted by the reverse carry trade somehow, was depegged or sanctioned, that could also elicit huge demand for XRP across the exchanges, very similar to the Shane Ellis theory that was put out. And that's part of my domino theory. I think that will happen during all of this to drive additional demand to push it to even higher prices to be able to settle the back end of the stock market. So that would be the only like outlier that isn't, it's in the domino theory, but you could pluck that piece out and move it over and use that one by itself to drive price to probably $500 or higher. But outside of that circumstance, just another ETF from BlackRock's not going to do it. Without institutional demand for the settlement of the back end of the stock market and these other applications, it's not going to do it. Without the need to be able to rebalance balance sheets globally to offset debt, they're not going to do it. Again, all of this culminates to one big thing happening all at the right time with the perfect storm to see the crazy high prices for XRP that we're all hopeful for. And I'm not even going to speculate on, what 2030 looks like without the domino theory, because I'm that sure that the domino theory is going to play out. And when it does, XRP will be, $100,000 plus in 2030. Truth of Hearts, KT baby, what's going on? They say, how are you, ma'am? Hope you're doing well. Glad to see you here. She says, can you explain how making money move faster, XRP, is supposed to help fix all this when it's still the same money? It's a great question. So let's work through a few things here. Would you say that we are in the most uncertain time that we've ever been in? Probably so. And that's corroborated by BART chart. They put out a full chart over the last 100 years, and we are at the highest point of uncertainty. When people are uncertain, what do they do with their money? They hoard it. They put it in their sofa or their mattress or their refrigerator. They keep it out of the banks. They don't know what to do with it. They just know that they need their money. And so they don't circulate it. They stop spending. They stop consuming. They're concerned about the future. They don't know what's going to happen. They can't plan for things. So when humans are in that position, they halt and don't move. So what does that do to money? Well, it's what's causing the liquidity crisis right now. Money is locked up or held by people, and they are not moving it through the economy. There's not enough demand for certain goods and services, and so therefore the jobs start to fall off because businesses don't make enough money. And then when they need more money, they try to go to the bank and borrow from them, and the bank won't lend it to them because they're now their cash flows are down, and they're also tightening lending standards. So they go to the private credit market and they pay super high interest rates, and then they start to default on the private credit that they borrowed because the economy hasn't recovered yet. And then you get this dark spiral that happens. So, but if you had a way to cause money to move faster across the economy and bring back assurance that people can make plans and give them confidence to start consuming and drive consumer demand again, then all of that fixes itself. It's a positive feedback loop instead of a negative feedback loop. And that's what XRP does. It will start to cause money to move faster through the economy. It will allow people liquidity when they need it to be able to bridge gaps until we start to see the growth in GDP and demand happen again. And it'll pull us out of this situation by rebalancing balance sheets with a much higher price so that there's not as significant as a debt burden. If you needed more debt, you could borrow against the XRP because I think it'll be a tier 1 asset to be able to refinance your debt at lower interest rates than what you're currently paying. It does so many things to be able to fix the economy that we're currently in. Right now, we are in a debt spiral, and we need to move to an asset-backed, like positive feedback loop that'll continue to grow on itself. So, inflation is made up by two components: M2 money supply, how much money is moving through an economy, and the velocity of money, or how fast that money is moving through the economy. So, like, let's say you lived in New York. I'll just give you like a tangible example of this. Live in New York, when I was there last time, I went outside and went to one of the hot dog stands, and I got a hot dog. Okay, I gave $1 to the hot dog guy. The hot dog guy closes his shop, and then he needs a ride to his house because it starts raining there in New York. Now, if he is saving his money and he's hoarding it, he's just going to walk home in the rain. He's not going to pay that cab driver. He's not going to pay that Uber driver. He's going to like stick that money in his jacket, throw his hood on, and walk, 10 blocks or whatever it is to his house. But if he's feeling, jolly, like everything's good and that he's going to have more money tomorrow and things aren't tight, he's going to call that Uber driver and he's going to give that Uber driver some money. And then that Uber driver is going to go eat after he gets off work, and he's going to eat at a diner. Now, if that Uber driver feels like he can't spend that money because he doesn't know if he's going to get money tomorrow, he's not going to go eat at that diner. He's going to keep that money. And so this is the situation we find ourselves in when the economy starts to take a downturn and people don't have assurances or confidence that they're going to be able to make more money tomorrow. They start hoarding that money and they don't spend it in the economy, and it slows everything else down. Like I said, it's a negative feedback loop that starts happening, but just because of consumer behavior. So if money's moving faster through the economy, payments are settling faster, people are getting paid faster, they're going to be spending that money faster also, and it helps everybody else out, stimulate the economy. So I don't know if that answered your question or not. I think I did a thorough job, but if you still have questions, please let me know. And hopefully that keeps it simple for people that might also have that same question. All right, we're an hour in, so I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, and we're going to work our way back up from the bottom. If you have a super chat, put it in right now. And if you don't put it in right now, just hold it. If I miss a super chat, again, you guys can email it to us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io or info@beyondbroke.com, and they will get over to me, and I will read them here on Monday next week. Am I in town on Monday next week? Let me see here. Hold on. We're going to take a look at the calendar. That's not what I wanted. Next week, I am in town next week. I will have our normal live on Monday night. And then I'm headed to Nashville on Tuesday for St. Patty's Day there with Canary Capital. All right. So I didn't see any more super chats. We're going to go back up over here in the comments. Kevin, my man, he says, Jake, my man, you already knew what I was going to say. He says, Mango here, coming to you from Cape Humphreys, South Korea. Awesome, dude. Thank you for watching. He says, prices are up. What are your, will be your SOB? What will be your SOB? There it goes. Point of no return moment. Thanks for all that you do for the tea lady and the team. Thank you, man. I mean, I haven't seen the Korean stock market, but I know that they were limit down the last couple days. Not good. I think we're, again, right on the precipice of everything collapsing here for the reverse carry trade and that unwinding. And Japan's going to be able to use, the oil situation as the scapegoat and just be like, hey, look, like we should have acted sooner, but, we have to raise interest rates aggressively. We're backed into a corner and here we go. So exciting times, man. Glad to see. Thank you for, watching and taking the time there in Korea. I don't know what time it is there. Hopefully, it's like Australia, like mid-morning for you. We got here for the fun. They say oil tankers in the Persian Gulf on fire, dropping XRP. Also, BlackRock ETF is small potatoes compared to their agenda. I wouldn't say it's small potatoes. It is a means to an end. A lot of people have asked, like, why wouldn't they just buy XRP directly? Why do they need to do it through an ETF? You're going to bring in broader market participants and other capital and huge inflows if you do it through an ETF and it's not just your own capital. And that also helps stabilize the price and demand over the duration and long term. It also allows for rotation out of other things in the stock market, including other ETFs into XRP. And that is how I believe they will funnel liquidity from Bitcoin into XRP during this cycle, is through the ETFs and mainly BlackRock's ETF when they launch it. And XRP is not dropping. It's at 137. It's been hanging out around 140. for, man, let's go all the way back to, call it early February. So we've been here for 39 days, something like that, almost 40 days, hanging around 140. So here's, y'all want tinfoil hat? I give you all tinfoil hat every once in a while. I do a lot more of this in the mastermind than I do here. But there's been some videos that Ripple's put out over the years where in the background, the clock has read, and again, like this is a stretch saying that they planted the clock, right? Okay, I get that. But the clock that they had in the background said 20 to 2. What time is 20 to 2? 140. What's the price of XRP at? About 140. Coincidence? I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. But if there's a there, it would be interesting if we saw XRP go to 140 and that's when we teleport much higher. We've got Ollie Albishop says Governor Yuta just hinted last hour at the Bank of Japan intervention for the yen trade. You think he gave away the game plan? I think that they got to tell people before they do it so that they can help, soften the blow in the market. And I do think that it's coming fairly quickly. Darren C says, hey, Jake, every transaction takes 3 to 5 seconds. Every XRP can do 17,280 transactions daily, meaning a total of $50 XRP could do SWIFT, derivatives, stock market, etc. 10,000 becomes hopefully not logical thoughts. So that's a good point. You could absolutely, if XRP could be utilized every single second of every single day, then to your point, I mean, that's a lot of transactions if it settles every 3 to 5 seconds. Unfortunately, that's not possible. Institutions aren't going to, give up their XRP to settle it all day long. They're going to hold it for durations of time. I'm going to go with, again, this is not my math. This is, who's the guy at BlackRock? Michael Barr went to the Fed. Robbie Mitchnick. Okay. Robbie Mitchnick was the head of digital assets at BlackRock. He came from Ripple. While he was at Ripple, he created a calculator that shows how XRP could get to $10,000. In his calculator, he actually had a metric or an input for how many times that XRP could be used per day. His limit in the calculator, Robbie Mitchnick, the guy that worked for BlackRock and Ripple, that built the calculator, was 10 times a day that an XRP could be used. That was his maximum number. How did he come to that number? I don't know. Okay, so that's far less than 17,280 times a day. Not to say that it can be used more than 10 times a day, but I think on average, the aggregate total of XRP will be used far less than 10 times a day. Somewhere between 3 and 5 times a day might be the maximum number of times that you would see the same XRP being used. And also, depending on how much XRP is available at any given time through the DEX to be able to settle all this stuff and what's on the open market, the supply could be constricted significantly if people wanted to hold it on their balance sheet. And I can tell you, well, can I tell you that? I won't say it that way. I think that certain entities and people participating with XRP would be advocates for locking it up. So the more times that XRP is used as collateral, maybe like for the derivatives market or a prime broker using it to back things, then there's not going to be a whole lot of XRP available. And some of it might be locked up in DeFi protocols or liquidity pools or AMMs or all these other mechanisms on the network that are going to provide liquidity for certain situations. So all that being said, I'm going to defer to Robbie Mitchnick. I think Robbie's probably smarter than me when it comes to XRP and the XRPL and what BlackRock's doing and all that. And for him to make a calculator that shows the maximum times it could be used was 10, I'm going to stick with Robbie's. So if you don't like that answer, you can go talk to Robbie Minchnick and ask him why he put that as a maximum of 10 on his calculator. And if I ever talk to him, I will ask him. Rick Johnson, again, Principal McVicker. Your wisdom on 2030 HBAR price appreciation versus or with XRP less than $10, no domino theory happening, ego aside. Again, like, I'm not trying to be egotistical about this. I'm trying to tell you that I know that the dominoes theory is going to happen without telling you I know the domino theory is going to happen. Okay. I don't have another way to say it. So I'm not going to speculate on what if that doesn't happen when I know that that's the outcome. HBAR, I think, will do exceptionally well. I've talked about $1,000 HBAR on other videos. I just watched a guy the other day that did a TikTok reel, overlaying me talking about $1,000 HBAR. I think that that's quite possible by 2030. I think that it will be one of the 3 to 5 base protocols that everything else is built on top of. And because of that, it'll become very valuable, and there'll be tons of transactions on that network, and it'll have tons of proprietary data that's super secure, and they'll build dApps on top of it, and all kinds of things. And so for those reasons, I think that there's going to be huge amounts of demand for HBAR, and with the limited supply and fixed fees on the network, I think it's well positioned to do 3 to 4 figures in the next 4 or 5 years. Fly Fishing Jeremy, he says, Chairman Jake. That's got a nice ring to it. I can live with that. He says, has anything happened with Polysign in the last year? Will anyone get anything back for Polysign shares from Link2? I can't talk about the first part of this question, but I will talk about the Link2 part. So there's a couple things, right? So they're out of business. They have no cash flow. They still have assets on their balance sheet. Polysign still has Ripple shares that they acquired in the transaction with Standard Custody. And as Ripple shares continue to increase in value, they're now at $300 per share. They were sold them in that exchange for Standard Custody at $61 a share. So they're now 5 times more valuable than what they actually, the $17 million that they got in that transaction in Ripple shares. Over the long term, if we see a significant IPO for Ripple, I do think that they will probably pay out their investors. They raised over $500 million from the Soros Fund and many others to be able to fund the development of that technology, both AtomicNet, their custody protocol, and then MG Stover, the acquisition of them before they were then sold off to Securitize. Actually, it was Boathouse and then Securitize. But all that being said, I haven't heard anything about what's going on with Polysign. And Link2 is still a problem. I think they're going to do liquidating trust. And so if there is anything that comes back to people for Polysign there at the Link2, eventually it will make its way back to the people that own those shares on that platform. Most of the people that invested with us on Polysign have already written it off, and they will just recapture those gains if they ever do come to fruition. So that's where we're at the moment. David, he says, Jake, what's up, dude? You are my secret weapon, sir. I have heard from multiple intelligent people, BlackRock may be waiting on their XRP ETF because they may be using the XRPL to tokenize all of their ETFs. Dun, dun, dun. BlackRock nor Brad won't speak about each other. Thoughts? I'll say this. So one of the functionalities or the amendments that's been put forth and implemented on the XRPL is called a multi-purpose token, or an MPC, or an MPT, excuse me. A multi-purpose token functions like an ETF, but it's fungible. So you can have different properties, a unique identifier for each one, voting rights, if it were shares in a corporation or private shares or private equity. You can have other things that the token can do aside from just transact monetary value between an exchange between it and another token. It gives you rights to certain things. That is a perfect thing for tokenization of stocks. It's absolutely fantastic. And you heard Larry Fink talk at the World Economic Forum about one unified ledger that everything's tokenized on. He didn't say it would be a multi-chain world. I'm an advocate for a multi-chain world. You've got Axelar, you've got Wormhole, you've got all these things that have been built out for that instance to happen. And I do think that competition breeds better outcomes for consumers and the people participating in different ecosystems. But all that being said, I'm sure that the entire stock market will settle through XRP on the back end for the ETFs, the tokenization of the ETFs themselves. Many people might speculate that that'll end up on Canton or another network. Maybe each exchange chooses whatever network they want to, and they have interoperability and an overlay that's a unified accounting mechanism on the back end with the DTCC. The DTCC's investment in Canton and trialing that is interesting. Sometimes they trial things just to test certain functionality for stuff when they know that they're going to adopt something else, and they want to make sure that they're implementing the other unique features of whatever that is while they're trialing it in the thing that they're actually going to use. There's a lot of R&D and development that happens in financial products and markets that I think people tend to gravitate toward. Like, as soon as they see a headline, they're like, that's the end all be all, that's what it's going to be. It's never that simple. There's always dynamics that are changing and shifting, and oftentimes people are just doing R&D to check if they want to use this feature or that feature that's on this blockchain, and then implement it on the thing that they're actually going to use. So all that being said, quite possible that the ETFs that BlackRock has could be tokenized on the XRPL, but I do think they will absolutely be settled through XRP. A lot of good super chats, a lot of good stuff tonight. Thank you guys again for taking time out of your Wednesday to come hang out with me and ask great questions. I always forget to say it, so please like, subscribe, share. It does help the algorithm reach more people, but only if you're finding value from this. The super gamey guy says, let's say the reverse carry trade unwinds and Japan raises interest rates. What is your best estimation of timeline for a significant price rise? Days? Best guess? Days? Could be faster. I tend to think, and I could be wrong, happy to say I was wrong if I'm wrong, always do. I think my opinion would be that they will start driving liquidity into XRP while all of that is happening. Because if they don't, the downward pressure of the rest of the market could suck it so far down that it might not be able to recover and be used. So I think you're going to see XRP start to rise very quickly and aggressively as those things start to culminate into a bad situation for markets, because they would rather be a little bit proactive than like reactionary at the last second. And that, I would say, has been corroborated by the pace at which they've moved things here. I thought it was going to be a very quick thing when I first put the domino theory out, but this has been very slow and controlled and methodical. And I don't think that tempo is going to change much. It might quicken, and then it'll be, they say trickle, flood type situation where it's, very slowly, and then all of a sudden, I do think that that's going to be a thing. So all that being said, I think that the price rise will happen extremely rapidly, but up to a couple days, post reverse carry trade unwinding. A month worm, I butchered that. I hope you're doing good, man. You always ask great questions, and I appreciate the super chat. He says, hey, Jake, hope you and the family are well. We're doing good. Thank you. Feel very blessed. You mentioned that XRP price will spike before the Clarity Act gets finalized. How much do you think the price will be? 100, 500, 1,000? Also, hope you open an office in Thailand soon. Thanks. The answer is I don't know. I know the long-term outcome. I don't know the volatility in between. I don't know. I wish I could give you guys an exact date and play-by-play and what price it's going to be and where to buy and sell and tell you I'm an oracle or a prophet or all these things. I'm not. I'm just a regular dude. I just happened to watch people that were smarter than me and come up with this thing a couple years before it happened. Okay. So I don't know the exact specific price that it's going to be and what time frame. And I'm not even going to speculate, because if I do, I just get too much flack. It's not worth it. I know what the long-term outcome is going to be, and so I'm just going to stick with that. And I think that's going to be over $1,000 when everything plays out for XRP. Like the champ, he says, what if Ripple passes the escrow to an institution, maybe not all of it, intending the XRP to be a lender of last resort? Could it be ties to the IMF? Bretton Woods 3.0 would be pretty gnarly. GB for goodbye. I think they're going to have to. So within 12 months of the Clarity Act passing, Ripple is going to have to only own 20% of the total supply of XRP or less. So this person says, Jake, will XRP ever pass Bitcoin? Yes, in market cap and in, well, I don't know if it'll do it in price over the long term, but definitely in market cap. And I think that'll be in the short term. So back to the question at hand. Could they pass the escrow to institutions? Yeah, for sure. They definitely could. And I think that the 1,700 pre-negotiated contracts or options on the XRP, and with Ripple having, you know, over 50 or 60 wallets that they control for the escrow releases, I think that those could absolutely be passed to specific institutions to be able to manage the XRP that's going to be released there. The IMF definitely might be one of those. There are documented photos of Brad and Ripple meeting with the IMF and Christine Lagarde in 2017. And we are now almost a decade after that. So I think a lot of this was pre-negotiated a long time ago. Brian, Mr. Lopez, he says, I have the LLC. What's the next process of getting it over to you guys? And after it's in the LLC, do I have to let y'all know everything? One more, I buy more. No, you don't have to tell us anything. You get a cold wallet, you can just move it there. If you buy more, you know, hopefully you're setting up an exchange account that has an LLC as the owner, and then you can just buy it in that exchange account and send it to the wallet address associated with your LLC that you've moved in there in the capital contributions page, the way that we do it. So glad to be working with you. Glad that you set up the LLC. If you want to work with Digital Wealth Partners, all you have to do is go to digitalwealthpartners.net. And go to the contact us form, fill that out, and we will have an advisor reach out to you. They'll schedule a call, they'll onboard you, they'll do all the stuff. Right now, again, you only need at least 100,000 in total crypto portfolio in order to be able to onboard over there. We're going to do that for a limited time. So get in while the getting's good. And the other thing that we're running over there right now is if you have more than $1.1 million in Bitcoin, we will drop the AUM rate to 40 bips. So we do have the Fidelity Bitcoin product that we launched earlier this year. The minimum to invest in that's $500,000, and we get you access to an institutional strategy that's produced 38% in Bitcoin over the past 5 years. So if that sounds cool to you, if you have a bunch of Bitcoin and you want institutional custody and advisor and access to that, we would love to work with you. And again, you know, it's only 40 bips if you take advantage of this promotion. Jay Weatherly, dog. He says, what do you think about Ripple's timing of the buyback option? Cash option during a liquidity crisis is genius. I don't know if you're talking about their stock buyback or the tender offer that they just issued, or if you're saying they're buying back XRP. I'm going to go with the tender offer is what you're talking about. And yeah, I mean, they're buying their shares back and providing cash out to shareholders. They've done this multiple times. I don't know that it has anything to do with the timing, but they wouldn't be buying back the shares at 300 if they thought they were going to be worth less than that later on. So that should probably tell you something about where they think the share price is going. Roughnet says, I don't know about everyone else, but just listening to you and how humble you are, your faith, and watching your actions, not just your words, make it easy to want to follow, trust you. Thank you for being a good leader for us. Thank you, man. Look, I pray a lot, and I ask for wisdom, and most of the time just wisdom and discernment. And I have full faith that everything's going to work out and we're right where we're supposed to be. And as long as I stay in alignment with that, I'll continue to be able to help and walk in my highest path. Right. So I'm going to continue to do that and just be a vessel and do what I was put here to do. And hopefully that resonates with people and they want to, you know, hang out and come work with us. And I'm going to continue to try to do everything I can to make sure that we have the options and solutions for people that need them. And yeah, I mean, that's all I can do. Right. So I feel like we're the conduit. I feel like the Lord's blessed me and put me in a position to be able to help other people. And that's what I'm supposed to do. And I'm just going to continue to do that as long as I'm allowed to. So, and that also probably repels the people that don't necessarily want to work with us, which is also a good thing. So I don't mind that at all. I don't make my religion my platform, but yeah, I have a very strong faith. So thank you for the kind words and the support and being part of the community. I know Roughnet's in the mastermind over there. So if you guys want to join the mastermind, we would love to have you. All you got to do is go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2 there in the mastermind. Power lines. He says, when XRP goes to $20 to $1,000 or so, is it just a liquidity pool for all the XRP owners who purchased XRP at lower prices? Why would the price stabilize if 10 to 30 billion XRP is waiting to be cashed out by people or companies? So there's not that much XRP that's owned by retail. The total amount of XRP that's on exchanges is about 16 billion. 7 or 8 billion of that's already been removed. So it's back into the single digit billions that's on exchanges. Exchanges hold large portions of XRP themselves on reserve. So there's really not that much XRP actually available out there for trade, maybe less than 500 million in total on the market. And even as prices rise, I think people are going to continue to hold the asset. That's the mantra or the conviction that we have. And at a high value, you're not going to want to realize those tax implications unless they make it tax-free. And then that would incentivize selling, to your point, so the institutions could buy. But your question was, why would it be a high stable price? So the reason for that is once they drive enough liquidity into it, they will start to be able to use it at scale to settle markets. And the infrastructure that we currently have to settle markets is latency and fees and all those things. And it will actually be cheaper, faster, and more effective to move to the XRPL and settle through XRP in the DEX. So as that volume moves over, that has additional demand for the asset and trading volume, which is what it's actually priced off of. And with that consistent volume on a daily basis, that's what will hold the price at a significantly higher level, even if there is selling pressure on the market. Hopefully that makes sense. Henry, Mr. Ramirez, he says, hey, Jake, I live in Miami. I created an LLC and a trust. Awesome, dude. What bank do you recommend here in Miami to open an LLC account? God bless and thank you. Capital One tends to do pretty good for people. You might also look at Old Glory. They're an online bank, and they do have physical locations as well. I don't know. I don't think they're there in Miami though. But Capital One, we've had some decent success with people getting accounts there for their LLC, and maybe in the near future we might have some business bank accounts for people in their LLC. Roughnet says, loving the mastermind. Carbon 2, if you have a living trust, do you even need a will? Thanks. Yeah, you actually do still need a will. So in the living trust that we help people structure, you'll have a pour-in will. And the pour-in will moves everything that's not in the trust into the trust at the time of your death. So you want to make sure that you're listing out things that you bought after you establish the trust that you might not retitle in the name of the trust. So if you have, call it gold, silver, family heirlooms, your house, other things, if those things are still in your personal estate and they are listed in the pour-in will, they will get pulled into the revocable trust at the time of your death. So you probably do still want some type of will. That way there's a pour-in will provision in the trust, and all those assets will, avoid probate. It's a good question, though. We'll probably have Dan Plaskett in again on Carbon 2 in the near future. And if you want to ask him, he probably has a similar answer to me, but he's going to have a much more thorough answer than I have. Da Vinci Ripple, Davich Ripple says, hey, Jake, I'm meeting with DWP tomorrow. Awesome, dude. Can you explain the difference between DWP and DAG and how to take advantage of using both? Thank you for making Mondays and Wednesdays awesome. Thank you, man. I appreciate the kind words and look forward to be working with you. So we're actually, and I haven't announced this publicly, and I'll probably get my hand slapped for this, but we're going to consolidate all the brands back into just Digital Ascension Group. So, because this is a common question we get. They're like, well, you have this entity and that entity and this entity, and like, how do they work together and what does this look like? Schwab and Fidelity have 20 entities apiece. When you go there, it's just Schwab or Fidelity, and they have DBAs for all of the other companies that they have, and so it's just one unified umbrella. And so that's what we're going to do. The original tagline for Digital Ascension Group was your digital wealth partner, and that's why I named the wealth management division DWP, or Digital Wealth Partners. But that's the difference. So Digital Ascension Group is the multifamily office. They do the estate planning, other professionals that would provide you private client services. But because the RIA is an SEC regulated entity, we set up a separate entity for that specifically. And they exclusively do the wealth management for our clients of their crypto. They have the institutional custody there at Anchorage. They have the advisors that are all licensed with the 65, 63, 66, 7, 6, whatever license they have, in order to be able to work there and provide financial advice. And yeah, it's a regulated entity. And so that's why it's kind of separated out. But we are going to unify the brand in the near future. Football Maniac says, hey, Jake, what's your thoughts on Arthur Britto? Man, I have so many thoughts on Arthur Britto. I think Arthur Britto is brilliant. I think this is going to sound way out there, but I think he might also be a time traveler. Very aloof, very private. There's only a few pictures of him on the internet that you can find. Extremely intelligent, has worked with many government agencies over the years, and I think he's moved on to some other pretty interesting things at this point. Obviously, he was involved with Polyign before that whole thing kind of fell apart, and he was one of the chief architects for the XRPL and Ripple early on. He's kind of kind of a ghost type figure. Not many people know who he is, or he just kind of sits in the background and does his thing. I think he also might be part of the consortium that was Satoshi. I think he might also still control some of the Bitcoin that's in Satoshi's wallets. And I think there is an account on Twitter that's not the Arthur Britto account that he posts interesting things from that I follow, which I've named here before, but I won't name right now. So anyway, interesting guy. I think he's brilliant, and I think he knows a lot more than he lets on. And hopefully I get to meet him one day. That'd be cool. WizFit says, would it be possible for Ripple to sell 30 billion XRP to the government for $1.40 to meet Ripple's decentralization criteria? Then the government reprices XRP to 2,500, which would instantly give the government a huge profit that would help the national debt. So they don't need to reprice it. The problem with repricing it is the price becomes fixed. It's not dynamic. And you need a dynamic price to be able to fluctuate with the volume of transactions that are happening across the economy. This is the same premise that I kind of fight against, XRP being backed by gold, which a lot of people kind of pontificated on for years. If it was a fixed value or direct reflection of gold, it wouldn't be dynamic and it wouldn't fulfill its purpose if it's a fixed value, or pegged is the word that a lot of people like to use. So I would say no. I think that they're just going to use supply and demand dynamics to drive it to the price that they need it to be. And then once it's a high enough price, they'll start using it, and it'll drive more demand for the network. And it'll continue to push the price to a level where it starts to stabilize for whatever volume of transactions are moving over the network, but still fluctuates enough to be able to be dynamic and flexible for the position it's going to sit in. Again, I could be wrong. You could be right. That's how it could play out. This is just my 2 cents based on everything that I know. William Parker says, "Hey Jake, thanks for the information. I think Paul Barron started a petition for Congress today. I think it's called To Save America Savings Accounts. The offset bankers petition with 4,000 signatures. God bless us all. Thanks." Yeah, if you guys don't follow Paul, I've been on his podcast a couple different times. I love his content. He puts out fantastic content. I would highly recommend going over there and following Paul Barron. And apparently potentially participating in his petition. We already did power lines, so maybe I need to, yeah, it kicked me down in the chat. Every once in a while, it'll move me around over here. U.S. Marine Corps, 0311 Luke says, "Happy 0311 day. I think you met Matt Hogan. Why do you think Matt Hogan doesn't like XRP? It seems like he is in circles that would know, and yet he doesn't acknowledge it." A second here. I'm going to go over to my Twitter and I'm going to search my messages. Let's see here. No, sorry. Somebody else at Bitwise that I was talking to, not Matt Hogan. I don't even want to say that he's ignorant. I think that he's very intelligent. I think the guys over there at Bitwise have done a fantastic job. They're advocating for the space and they're getting adoption from RIAs. They're doing structured products. I'm happy for them, but their focus has mainly been on where the liquidity is and not where it's going. And that's not them alone. That's the majority of institutions. They still don't really see the long-term path for this market and what's going to be used and what is not going to. And they're currently looking at what they consider blue chips or the incumbents as kind of the mainstays of what's going to be around for a long time. You could have done the same thing with Napster early on. You could have done the same thing with Alta Vista early on. Both of those things seemed like the best thing at the time when they were disintermediating things like Bitcoin and Ethereum have. But then better things came along and disintermediated those, and now you don't even hear about them. I don't know that that'll be the complete case with Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I do view them as the early movers that'll probably be disrupted by better technology and regulation. And that's why, maybe regulation has been pushed out as far as it has, because there's, to the other gentleman's point earlier, people with a lot of money in these crypto tokens that can lobby and push that out. Tinfoil hat. So yeah, I think Matt Hogan's a sharp guy. I think that their focus is mainly on building, structured products and getting those in RIAs, and they don't necessarily care where the liquidity moves. They'll pivot when they need to in order to meet that demand and create those products and drive that for their clients. We already did this for William Parker. Coming down to the end of my time here, we got a couple more super chats. We got Up More Tickets. They say, just saying hello, mastermind member here from Canada, on vacation in your state to see a couple Spurs games this week in San Antonio. Wimby is a freak. Go XRP, go Spurs. That's awesome, dude. Appreciate you coming down to Texas. Definitely a little bit warmer this time of year than Canada. And again, appreciate you being part of the mastermind. If you guys want to join the mastermind, again, we would love to see you. We are going to shut the mastermind down on the other side of a $10 XRP. It'll be invite only. Prices will be much higher. So if that's something that you want to get in or you fit in before that happens, which could happen very quickly, you can always go over to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, right here at the top of the screen. Get you the first month for $2 there in the group, and it locks you in at the prices that we have today. You're grandfathered in. You're not going anywhere. And it's month to month, no contract. So if you want to leave at any time. But I will say there's over 16,000 people there in the mastermind that have stayed. So I think we do a good job of providing a lot of value. People get more than what they pay for. And, you know, you can hear it from other people here on the live stream as well. We got Designer Shiner. They say, hey, what's up, Jake? What's up, my dude? Since I have a bunch of people I care about buy XRP, after price appreciation, I know they're going to ask what to do with their small bags, 1 to 2K. What would be the best not financial advice for them? Sit on your hands. Pretend you don't have it. They're not going to be able to do that. But if they could, and they could wait it out another 5 years until 2030, they could retire. Like, they'll be good. That'll be their lifeline. So as an example, like my barber has that much XRP. And I've told him, I'm like, when it gets to $1 million, don't even look at it. Just pretend it's not there. Because he's in his mid 40s. And I'm like, look, if you can just work till you're, you know, call it 47 to 50, you got a young baby at this point. I know your wife's younger than you and you started this new life and you're doing awesome. Proud of you. But look at this as your retirement. Don't look at it as I can use this right now. The mindset shift that I think everybody's going to have to go through, not just people with small bags, is you're going to become a steward of this money for your family. It's hard because you made the investments. You feel like it's your money. If you can flip that and change it to, this is my family's money, this is generational wealth, I am a steward of this, you look at that money very differently than you would if it's your money, right? A portion of it can stay your money, okay? But at least some of it needs to be looked at as, I am a steward of this, I am protecting it, I am growing this so that my family and future generations are protected and can take advantage and have opportunities that I didn't have, right? So that's the paradigm shift that I would try to help those people get. That's a hard thing to do when you're day-to-day, paycheck to paycheck, food, hand to mouth. If you're focused on survival, you're going to continue to stay focused on survival, and it's going to be hard to ignore a lot of money that just showed up in your life. The other thing I would say, if they can sit on it for 6 months before they do anything, just tell them, say, hey, look, what's another 6 months? I know that this is going to be hard for you to like just not touch this for 6 months, but if you can get used to having that much money and not spending it and not doing anything with it, just living your life and knowing that you have that, that alone will help people out, because now they know that they have that in the background and they have a safety net. And then that allows them to take, you know, bigger swings at stuff and a little bit be more aggressive with things. If you're hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck, it's hard to take any risks. So I don't know if that helps or not, but that would be my 2 cents. That's my not financial advice for those people. Also, I would take, you know, whatever period they're going to hold it and not do anything and go find really good professionals to work with. Because if they've never had that much money before, it's hard for them to, you know, fathom being able to manage that. And it's definitely a skill set. My wife says, I don't want this job. She's moderating the TikTok and she don't want this job. It's not a bad job. Come on. I'm not a mean boss. I'm easy to get along with most of the time. We already did this one for KT Baby, so maybe we've made it through all of them. Let me double check over here and make sure I didn't miss anything. Get anything from, yeah, Mike sent me some stuff here. We did that one. We did that one. And we did that one. So I've got all the big super chats. We're coming down to the end of it here. One more time, if you need an LLC, we'd love to work with you on that. A couple people have mentioned that tonight. You get creditor protection, anonymity. You know, you want to be structured the right way to make sure you're able to mitigate taxes and protect your stuff. Don't have to work with us, but if you do want to work with us, you can go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and use the code 50OFF, 50OFFDAGLLC. Get you everything end to end for that LLC for $2,000. If you want to add a living trust and get the assignment to make sure that the assets are in the living trust, it's $800. That's going to be cheaper than anybody does a living revocable trust, even in your state, if you go to an attorney there. And then, like I said, on the wealth management side, if you want to work with us there, our minimums drop to 100,000 total in crypto, or at least 50,000 XRP. You can onboard. Go to digitalwealthpartners.net and use the contact us form, and one of our team members will reach out to you to set up a consult. And then last but not least, we would love to see you over there in the mastermind. I don't think it's going to be open that much longer. Just, I don't know. We'll see if we see price appreciation. I feel like we're pretty close here with everything that's finally playing out for the domino theory. And I feel like when it does happen, it's going to happen very quickly. And we are going to shut the mastermind down. So if you want access to that, if you want to get in there before that happens, you can go try it out. It's $2. If you don't like it, you can cancel it anytime. You just go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar. So with that, I'm going to wrap it. I hope you guys have a wonderful night, a wonderful Wednesday, a wonderful week, and we will see you on the next one.